Millionaires laughed at the butler's black daughter until she surprised them with an amazing move. Meera brushed her fingers against the worn edges of her father's old documents, each yellowed paper a reminder of dreams shattered by societal expectations. Her mind raced as whispers from the lavish party next door wafted through the open window, stirring memories of mockery she had endured. At just 17, she felt heavy with the weight of the laughter that echoed in her neuroses, laughter that underscored a harsh truth: a girl like her could never grace the seats of privilege. A butler's daughter, they would scoff, a pretender at a banquet of the elite. Earlier that day, while flipping through her father's archives, she had discovered a letter revealing he was once a brilliant chemist, a man with aspirations crushed under the thumb of the wealthy families he served. A surge of determination accompanied the shock. Was this it? Was the barrier between them and a brighter future merely a facade built on stigma and ignorance? For Meera, the fight was personal. The millionaires on her street wore their fortune like crowns, bejeweled with entitlement, while she struggled for recognition despite a 4.0 GPA and a heart full of ambition. The irony was suffocating. Academic success meant little when privilege dictated worth. In the hours leading to the university seminar, her stomach churned with anxiety. She envisioned the audience, the luxury suits, the flawless manicures, the subtle smirks. What would they think of a butler's daughter? Doubt stabbed at her conviction. Would they listen to her research? Or would they reduce her to the narrative they already held? As she rehearsed over and over again, she felt her confidence wrestle with a pulsing dread. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she stood at the podium, the invasive whispers turned into a drumming in her ears, each chuckle a reminder of her place in a world where privilege overshadowed merit. A flicker of doubt turned her hands clammy. Breaths uneven, she hesitated. Would she even make a dent in their perceptions? But as she gazed across the sea of skepticism, she thought of her father and the sacrifices he made. An ember ignited, the truth demanded to be told. With steely resolve, she began unveiling her groundbreaking research, revealing not merely her innovative findings but also the systemic injustices that confined families like hers to the periphery. She recounted her father's lost dreams, his struggles against an unforgiving world that had slammed doors in his face. The laughter diminished, the arching brows softened. For the first time, curiosity replaced disdain, and a shift occurred. She was breaking through. But as her presentation culminated, she caught sight of a powerful figure in the audience, a man who once shaped her father's fate. Her heart raced with uncertainty. Had she truly transformed their perception, or was this only the beginning of her battle? With her future precariously dangling on the edge, she stepped down from the podium, leaving the crowd stunned into silence, grappling with an unsettling truth they had long ignored. The air felt charged as she stepped down, each applause echoing with a mix of admiration and disbelief. Yet uncertainty lurked beneath the surface. Had she truly made a difference, or had she merely skimmed the surface of deep-rooted biases? Meera's heart raced, splitting between exhilaration and weary caution. A small part of her craved affirmation, an acknowledgement from those who deemed her invisible. But she dismissed it, recognizing that validation from this world was a mirage, shimmering yet unreal. Meera. A familiar voice pulled her thoughts back. It was Rashad, her best friend, bursting through the throng with an exuberance that momentarily dulled her apprehension. You were incredible. I mean, they were riveted. Did you see their faces? She managed a small smile. Thanks, Rashad. Her words faltered. What she felt went beyond the applause, deeper, more unsettling. I want to know if they understood what I was saying. Of course they did. You turned their world upside down. But hey, can we celebrate? You need to soak this moment in. Before she could respond, Rashad was already weaving through the crowd, urging individuals to compliment her. Meera felt a growing need to break free. The cacophony of conversations masked her thoughts, drowning her in their triviality. She slipped away toward the cafe. The cafe's quiet contrast enveloped her, allowing needed solitude. She glanced out at the street lined with glossy cars, each a symbol of the lives she wanted to transcend. She remembered her father's dreams and fears, they had echoed in her heart during her presentation. Their appearance had shifted slightly today, but she couldn't help but shake the feeling that this wasn't enough. She pulled out her notes, reviews, and observations from the seminar. As critical feedback unfolded on the paper, it felt like an audit of her very essence. Time might have eclipsed what she had hoped to achieve, the resilient thrum of doubt still lingered. Meera's phone buzzed in her pocket. An email notification flashed across the screen, an investment firm interested in her research findings. Surprise jolted through her. This was significant, a breakthrough. What followed was a battle inside. Questions taunted her. Was she ready to engage with the very industry that marginalized her father? The desire to prove her worth soared, but so did trepidation. What if she failed? What if they trivialized her contributions? Would she lose herself in the same cycle that broke her father? Torn between excitement and fear, she pressed open the email, her fingers hovered over the screen. Staring at the offer, she felt the weight of legacy bearing down on her again. Each decision she faced was a pendulum, swinging between her aspirations and the gaping void of expectation. She dialed Rashad, needing to clarify her thoughts. What if this is just another facade? She asked, emotion curling in her voice. That's a risk, but think about the opportunity. You can change perceptions from the inside, he replied, unwavering. Imagine being at the negotiation table instead of only being an audience member. His words hung heavily, nudging her further into contemplation. She could not shake the image of professionally clad figures seated around a polished table, their laughter resonating with privilege. What if I show them something they haven't seen yet? Meera whispered to herself, a surge of resolve washing over her. The fire within her reignited. This could be her chance to cement her voice in this industry and shatter the stereotypes that chained her. With that, she drafted a response, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Inch by inch, the walls of her trepidation began to crumble. Yet, as she penned her acceptance, discomfort stirred a weight that stemmed from knowing she was stepping into the lion's den. It was a choice that would alter her trajectory forever. As she hit send, a knot coiled in her stomach. The reality of her decision settled in. She stood at the precipice of a striking journey. Could she confront this choice without losing herself to the very elitism she decritiqued? Across the bustling cafe, her father's old documents lay abandoned on the table, a testament to their intertwined fates. As she gathered her belongings, she knew one truth remained: whatever awaited, it would demand every ounce of courage she had. The moment of testing her resolve was escalating. As she stepped outside, her gaze flickered back to the inviting cafe door, a fleeting reminder of her past comfort. But that was now behind her, and ahead lured the unknown visions of boardrooms and remarks of her predecessors spinning around her. The time had come to face the core of her struggle. Could her voice rise above the privilege, or would it succumb to the shadows of her heritage? Meera faced the horizon, where the bustling street thrived with a rhythm that felt alien to her. Uncertainty twisted within as she strode forward, the concrete beneath her feet echoing her resolve and fear in equal measure. She had said yes to the investment firm, but the path ahead loomed large and fraught with complexity. As her thoughts spiraled, flashes of her father's face surfaced, a fierce gleam in his eyes, pride laced with caution. Had he envisioned this moment in his wildest dreams, or would he be anguished at the thought of her embracing an industry that had offered him nothing but closed doors? Every step she took felt like an involuntary dance between her aspirations and ancestral scars. Getting on the subway late that day, the hum of conversations blurred into a haze. Meera stared at the flickering lights above, her heart pounding with every station that passed. It was a mental rehearsal for what awaited her, the boardroom, the negotiations, the inevitable scrutiny. Could she articulate a vision that would inspire respect rather than condescension? Rashad's voice reverberated in her mind, urging her to prepare. She imagined layers of meticulous arguments, statistics, and the fluidity of her presentation, yet doubt crept in. Who was she to presume they would listen? As the subway doors opened to her destination, she hesitated, a swell of fear pinching her stomach. She was welcomed into an upscale lobby, the kind that dripped with opulence and unspoken hierarchies. She scanned the room, studying the ensemble of polished suits and confident body language. Her heart raced, the sterile brightness overwhelmed her. In that moment, she felt utterly unprepared. A sense of invasion washed over her as the inevitable thought surfaced: they will see me as nothing more than my father's daughter, an outsider. Pushing through the oppressive air, she made her way to the conference room marked with her name on a glossy plaque. Surprisingly, it felt like a portal, not just into the room but into a new part of herself. She had come to challenge the status quo, and in every heartbeat, a new resolve crystallized within her. The presentations she had practiced echoed in her mind. As she entered, she faced a table full of determined faces. The air thickened, saturated with expectation. After the initial greetings, they fell silent, waiting. She steadied her breath, holding the weight of her research, her truth. With each point she spoke, she noted their expressions shifting, skepticism ebbing. Perhaps she was reaching them, or maybe this was an illusion born of her hope. Yet, a glimmer of resistance stirred. One board member leaned back, arms crossed, a smirk curling on his lips. Interesting, but how does this impact our bottom line? He interrupted, his tone dismissive, layering skepticism onto her fragile confidence. In that moment, she felt small yet determined not to wilt under the scrutiny. It impacts more than just profit margins. The sudden edge in her voice surprised even herself. It's about creating a sustainable model that resonates across diverse demographics, an approach that could redefine your market share. The atmosphere shifted, a palpable tension of interest entangling with skepticism. They leaned slightly forward, curiosity piqued a moment she seized like a lifeline. As her voice rang with purpose, thoughts crystallized. She was not there merely to present data, she was there to assert her place, her identity, and her perspective on a system that had historically left so many unheard. Every challenge she faced would become the fuel for her ascent. However, as questions emerged and debates ignited, Meera recognized the stakes. This opportunity could either cement her presence in this world or fortify its barriers against her. Her legacy was at risk, but so was her integrity. Determined to adapt to their responses while staying true to herself, Meera navigated the discussion with a mixture of assertiveness and vulnerability. In her quest to break the mold, she discovered a burgeoning confidence, and alongside it, a profound realization: her father's dreams were not shackles but wings, propelling her into the uncharted realms of possibility. Yet, as she wrapped up her presentation, a voice she loathed to hear boomed from the end of the table, the same man who had challenged her earlier. "You do realize the world operates on different principles, don't you?" With the palpable tension crystallizing around her, Meera faced him head-on, the gap between them shrinking as she stood taller, ready. Was she equipped to handle the oncoming storm? The answer loomed, inevitably entwined with her next words, a defining moment not just for her career but for her identity. The words hung in the air, resonating like a challenge echoing off the polished walls of the conference room. Meera could feel the weight of his skepticism bearing down on her, the collective gaze of the board members pooling at the crux of her response. She lifted her chin, emotions swirling between indignation and determination. This was not just a moment of defense, this was a chance to redefine the discussion. Innovations that prioritize sustainability are not merely ideals, they influence consumer trust and brand loyalty. Today's marketplace demands inclusivity, not often regarded as a soft value, she declared, each word punctuated by the beating of her heart. By embracing these principles, you can secure a competitive edge. Just because it's contrary to your established approach doesn't make it any less valid. A glance around the table revealed an array of expressions from interest to the slow dawning of recognition. To Meera's surprise, the skeptical board member's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. She almost smiled at the shift. It was exhilarating to challenge the familiar, pushing against the bars of a cage she had only just begun to recognize. However, the room was not yet won. Another board member fired questions with rapid precision, looking to trip her up. If this sustainable model fails, how will you justify that loss? What is the plan B, or are we just taking a leap of faith? Her mind raced. Here was the crucible, the testing ground for everything she had prepared for. She invoked every late-night study session, every conversation with Rashad, and even the echoes of her father's advice. She scanned the group, reading their expressions. It was game time. Risk is inherent in every investment, yet what differentiates successful firms is their willingness to evolve, she replied, her voice steady. Plan B is recognizing that growth requires adaptation. If we fail to try something new, we jeopardize even greater losses in market relevance. This isn't about taking a blind leap, it's about being strategically astute in evolving consumer landscapes. The tension transformed, shifting from confrontation to collaboration. Some heads nodded, others leaned forward, absorbing her words as if they were sipping a new brew, reluctant yet intrigued. In that moment, Meera felt a surge of clarity surge through her. This was not merely a conversation about numbers or market strategies, it was a manifestation of her identity through the very principles her father had fought for: recognition, respect, and resilience. She realized she was no longer merely a representative of a new generation, she was a voice that could redefine narratives within this space of power. As the dialogue continued, she noticed the eyebrow of the same skeptical board member tilt upwards in acknowledgement. It was subtle, but to her, it signaled a shift and opening. Each idea she communicated constructed a bridge from her past to this unfamiliar world, a testament to the possibilities that lay ahead. When the meeting began to wind down, Meera could hardly believe the dynamic she had managed to create. For the first time, they weren't merely reviewing her proposals, they were also considering her perspective. She had fostered a dialogue, an exchange that felt reciprocal rather than combative. But as they officially ended the session, and as applause echoed faintly around the room, a gnawing tension lingered. Despite the positive shift, the man's earlier doubts still clawed at her, a reminder that this win was perhaps just the beginning. Tomorrow, we'll discuss further strategies, the lead partner announced, closing the meeting. But just before the team dispersed, the skeptical board member approached her, the lingering hint of skepticism still in his eyes. You've made your case, but you'll need to prove yourself if you want to be taken seriously here, he said quietly, his challenge jolting her. Meera nodded, unfamiliar resolve solidifying in her spine. She had fought this battle, but the war was far from over. She knew she had the tools, the insights, and now, an undeniable network. It was time to prepare for the next round, one that would demand even more than she had already given. As she stepped out into the crisp evening air, her phone buzzed with a message from Rashad: "You did well today, but don't underestimate how tough they can be. Next week's presentation is crucial. Are you ready to really break the mold?" Meera's heart raced at the thought. Ready? She wasn't certain. But she understood now more than ever that the real question wouldn't be if she was ready, it would be whether the world was ready for her. Tomorrow would come with its challenges, and she needed to prepare not just to succeed but to stay true to the vision she had begun to articulate. The next phase beckoned, and with every beat of her heart, it was clear, she was in deep now. Where would this lead her next? Would she rise, or would the walls close in once more? As she stepped into the night, the uncertainty lingered, electrifying. The evening air was cool but charged with anticipation as Meera made her way home, replaying the meeting in her mind. Each question posed, each rebuttal navigated, felt like a lifeline cast into turbulent waters. As she walked, she recognized a truth: she was no longer the passive participant rimming the edges of the conversation, she had staked her claim, and now she needed to build on that momentum. At home, The soft glow of her desk lamp illuminated her workspace. The reminders of countless hours spent preparing flickered before her like beacons from a turbulent past. The image of her father's handwritten notes flitted through her thoughts, words woven with the fabric of resilience and purpose. She picked up one of his slips, "You are worth the fight," and clenched it in her fist. Staring at the notes before her, Meera realized that the next meeting would require not just data, but a narrative that resonated emotionally. The board members were not chasing spreadsheets, they were pursuing stories that aligned with their ambitions or perhaps their fears. She had already glimpsed their vulnerabilities, now, it was up to her to weaponize them. Time to strategize, she whispered to herself, reaching for her laptop. Hours melted into each other as she pored over industry reports and case studies that exemplified successful sustainable business models. But statistics wouldn't suffice, her presentation needed a compelling arc, a personal connection. As dawn's first light streaked through her window, a thought crystallized: she needed a story, her story. A tale that mirrored the values she championed, a testament to the power of resilience intertwined with the relevance of sustainability. She began sketching her narrative, drawing parallels between her upbringing and her professional aspirations. Each connection highlighted the vitality of inclusivity and growth, ideals she had consistently fought for amidst skepticism. That afternoon, she stood before her mirror, rehearsing intonation and gestures. Words flowed more seamlessly now, conviction blossomed within her delivery. Yet, even amidst this newfound confidence, the specter of doubt still loomed. The board member's earlier challenge rung like an alarm. She had much to prove. With a scheduled rehearsal with Rashad looming, Meera felt her heart race. Meeting him would provide an opportunity to refine her approach, but it also intensified her fear of failure. Had she truly transformed enough, or was she still the girl trying to find her voice, clinging desperately to her father's principles? When Rashad arrived, she was relieved to find him brimming with support and encouragement, but he was also pragmatic. "You need to expect pushback, Meera," he warned, his eyes locked onto hers. "Prepare for the worst they can throw at you. Understand their fears, and be ready to dismantle them." With each mock question he posed, they navigated through possible scenarios, crafting sharp responses that reframed the board's skepticism. As they practiced, Meera noticed her initial tremors giving way to a more centered resolve. Each answer she crafted became less about defending her position and more about instigating a dialogue of genuine change. As the final rehearsal wrapped up, that same board member's piercing gaze danced in her mind's eye. Her heart thudded painfully. She was acutely aware of her vulnerabilities, yet they no longer felt like shackles. They felt like points of connection, potential hooks to draw the audience in. "Tomorrow will be different," she declared to herself, her voice firm, imbued with the anticipation of battle. With a final exchange of ideas, Rashad left her with one last piece of advice: remember, this is not just about them accepting you. It's about unearthing their reluctance to adapt. Provoke them to evolve. As she readied for bed that night, Meera settled into an uneasy peace, her mind a flurry of strategies and snippets of her story. The stakes were higher than ever, and she recognized she stood on the precipice of something monumental. The next morning arrived with the weight of fog clinging to her thoughts. The moment felt monumental, yet a hint of doubt lingered, gnawing beneath the surface. Would they acknowledge her as a credible force, or merely see her as an outlier destined to fade? With her heart thumping loudly in her chest, she arrived at the office, the anticipation in the air thick enough to cut. What awaited her this time? Would the board truly be ready to embrace her vision, or would they reject it outright? As she walked through the door, the tension tightened around her like a noose, and a familiar doubt resurfaced. Was she brave enough to take the plunge? Meera stood at the precipice of her moment. Each breath felt heavy with the weight of expectation, anticipation swirling around her like thick fog. The conference room awaited, a landscape peppered with sharp suits and dispassionate gazes, but beneath her nervous exterior, she felt a deep-rooted desire to challenge the status quo. Today was not merely another meeting, it was her declaration. As she entered, the board members perched at the long table acknowledged her with barely concealed ambivalence. Ample gaps of silence lay between them, mapping uncharted territories of doubt and skepticism. She took her place at the head of the table, the minutes ticking down like slow, relentless heartbeats. Her laptop clicked open, the screen blossoming with the first slide of her carefully crafted presentation. A twinge of fear flickered across her skin, but she banished it. Rashad's counsel echoed in her mind. Discover their fears. Dismantle their reluctance. She tightened her grip on her notes, summoning the steady resolve she had forged during her rehearsals. Thank you for being here today, she began, her voice steady, a reflection of the self-assured persona she cultivated in front of the mirror. She catalogued their faces, searching for even the slightest hint of connection. I'm here to share a vision, but also a story, one that intertwines my personal journey with the goals we're trying to achieve as a company. As she laid out her narrative, she interwove her childhood experiences with the fundamental values of sustainability and inclusiveness. She narrated her father's struggles as a single parent juggling multiple jobs, his hands rough from labor but his spirit unyielding. Each word carried weight, her story transcending the numbers that usually inhabited these walls. She noticed flickers of empathy, the stoic expressions began to soften. Then she pivoted to the company's core mission. We are at a critical juncture, Meera stated, one where our decisions can either align with sustainable practices or fall behind in an increasingly eco-conscious market. With each statistic she presented, she paired it with a poignant recollection, forcing them to confront both data and emotion in equal measure. However, her boldness was met with a jab from the very board member who had dismissed her previously. But you lack the experience, Meera. How can we trust your vision? The coldness of the question struck like a punch, but instead of recoiling, she felt a surge of energy. Experience doesn't always equate to wisdom, she countered, her conviction rising. Innovation often stems from fresh perspectives. The world is changing, and we must adapt. My background is the driving force behind my vision. It has equipped me with a unique lens through which I analyze and understand market trends. A ripple of murmurs coursed through the room as her words sunk in, the tension morphing into curiosity. She was no longer just defending herself, she was constructing bridges. As the presentation wore on, she navigated through questions and challenges, transforming each potential setback into an opportunity for dialogue. The once doubtful faces began to shift, some furrowing brows transforming into contemplative nods. Meera discovered a hidden strength within her, a spark of leadership she had scarcely recognized before. With the final slide illuminating the vision she passionately embodied, she made her closing statement, "This isn't just business, it's about legacy. Each one of us in this room has the power to affect change, not only for ourselves but for those who will follow." As the room plunged into silence, she could feel the previous weight of doubt lifting. The board members exchanged glances, and anticipation gripped her heart. Had she broken through, or was there still a barrier to shatter? Just as the chairperson was about to respond, another board member interjected, "But what if it fails? What if our investments don't yield results?" Doubts creep back in, she sensed the challenge emboldening. The moment hung in the air, a precipice teetering between her dreams and the harsh reality of conformity. Would her determination carry her over, or would the fear of failure strangle the potential of her vision? "I believe in calculated risks," she replied, her voice unwavering. "It's not about avoiding failure, it's about learning from it and pushing forward." As she awaited their verdict, that gnawing uncertainty resurfaced. Would their final response be one of courageous acceptance, or would it signify yet another hurdle she would have to leap beyond? Meera's heart raced as the board members deliberated in silence, their eyes darting between one another and back to her. The electric tension in the room crackled like static hair on a stormy day. A few moments felt like an eternity, and her chest tightened with the weight of potential rejection, and yet something stirred within her, a quiet boldness she hadn't fully embraced before. Finally, the chairperson broke the spell. "We appreciate your passion, Meera," he started, his voice ringing hollow like a distant echo. "But let us talk specifics. What measures do you propose to ensure these risks are calculated?" Numbers speak louder than narratives in board meetings. The emphasis on numbers stung, hitting the very core of what she was trying to reshape: a reliance on solely cold data. She steadied her breath, the anger of dismissal flaring momentarily. While numbers do hold significance, they don't tell the complete story. Allowing our narrative to lead our strategy could create opportunities we haven't explored yet, she articulated, her words precise and measured. She briefly scanned her notes, reminding herself of something Rashad once highlighted: the strongest leaders are those who inversely weave emotion with facts to create a compelling tapestry. As she presented her calculated strategies alongside passionate reasoning, she could see the board members leaning in, some even scribbling fast notes. It was their eagerness that suddenly made the words flow more easily, grounding her convictions in vivid examples of companies that thrived after taking risks on progressive initiatives. Empathy and data began to merge in a way that felt harmonious, a powerful message only she, with her background, could narrate. Yet, just as momentum built, she found herself pushed again, testing the boundaries of her newfound confidence. Interesting concepts, Meera, another board member, a tall man with a stiff demeanor, interjected. But your proposals lack a robust contingency plan. How can you ensure that the potential pitfalls are addressed? The guarded skepticism obscured any glimmer of faith in her vision. Each challenge sharpened the edge of her resolve. Contingency plans, she began, are vital, of course. But I submit that we often over-engineer them based on what we perceive to be negatives. They should empower us through foresight, not anchor us in fear. My vision allows for adaptability. Each word was a stepping stone, leading her back to the core of her character: the belief in resilience amidst challenges. The faces around her betrayed more curiosity than before. The earlier questions lost their bite; instead, they shifted into a dialogue that barely felt like an interrogation anymore. After a lengthy back and forth, with her mind becoming sharper, she sensed a shift. We can measure results in non-traditional ways too. Impact resonates in community sentiment and employee satisfaction, not merely in profits. This is about evolution, she stated firmly, her heart thumping with raw conviction. As she closed the gap on her presentation, another challenge emerged, less pointed, yet equally troubling. What makes you think our team will be on board with such a drastic shift? They've operated the same way for years, came a quieter voice from the end of the table, his exploratory tone reminding her of her insecurities during the earlier discussions. Doubt slithered in, but instead of retreating, her internal monologue sparked an idea rooted deep in her history. Change involves everyone's input. I want to foster an inclusive environment where ideas flourish, one that acknowledges resistance as a necessary part of growth. The words slipped from her tongue, firm and earnest. As the meeting drew to a close, the board members wore expressions that hung somewhere between contemplation and acceptance. The chairperson leaned forward, a flicker of interest now evident in his eye. So, you're suggesting that even in the face of skepticism, we lead with a narrative and trust its potential? Exactly, Meera responded, her heart racing. We become the authors of our future and allow the journey to shape our statistics instead of the other way around. Their faces softened as a new conversation beckoned. Yet before they could finalize their thoughts, one of the most dismissive members cut in. It's a long shot, but at what point do we realize we've miscalculated stakes? Emotions alone aren't viable in business. The tension escalated, igniting memories of her past battles, but this time she felt mightier, as if she were preparing for a pivotal play in a grand game. I can only speak from my experiences, which have taught me both the value of grounded decisions and the potential that lies in trailblazing paths. I urge you to envision not just profits, but also the legacies we choose to leave. With every word, she was not simply convincing the board, she was becoming the leader she always aspired to be, all while clutching tightly to her vision. As the dialogue continued and the discussions deepened, a realization washed over her: this wasn't about appeasing the board anymore. It was about her journey to authentic power. But as the evening darkness crept into the meeting room, she was left to ponder the most daunting question yet: would she dare push her conviction even further, challenging more than just the board? The prospect of risking everything tugged at her, threatening to unravel her carefully woven confidence. What would it take to transform her voice into the rallying call that could not only challenge but shock? Would she finally have the courage to confront the deepest doubts that still lingered within herself, or would she allow those to hold her back? The boardroom buzzed with an electric tension as Meera stepped out, her heart still racing. The flickering fluorescence overhead mirrored the chaos within her mind, a dissonance between the confidence she felt during the meeting and the myriad doubts that began to churn as she left the confines of that space. Each footfall on the polished floor seemed to echo her internal struggle. Was she really ready to challenge the status quo, or was her passion just a facade built upon the foundation of fear? Outside, the setting sun painted the skyline with shades of orange and purple. The world felt alive, vibrant against the grayness of corporate bureaucracy. Meera took a deep breath, revitalized by the cool breeze against her skin. For the first time, she recognized that the board meeting had been more than just a presentation. It was a test of her resolve, a glimpse into the possibility of transformation not just for the company, but for herself. That night, back at her apartment, she took out her journal, its pages filled with aspirations and retrospections. With clenched fists, she reflected on the hurdles still ahead. What if they dismissed her ideas as whimsical? What if she faced backlash for proposing such radical changes? The fear of rejection curled tight within her, and yet she realized that she couldn't shrink back now. The very core of her professional identity was at stake, and she needed to embrace this moment as an opportunity, not a setback. As her pen scratched against the paper, Meera began mapping out a strategic outline, one that could further synthesize her vision with a detailed, step-by-step implementation plan. Each bullet point was a commitment to her path, a declaration of her intent to lead with purpose, and remain steadfast in her convictions. The following day, the board reconvened for further discussions, and a shift had occurred. Meera, bolstered by her commitment to a detailed approach, infused fresh confidence into her demeanor. She turned challenges into opportunities, weaving her narrative seamlessly into analytical frameworks. As she spoke, she saw their skepticism melting, curiosity took its place, with heads nodding in rhythm to her vision. Let us not just be reactive, she remarked during another session. We can lead the conversation and redefine our benchmarks, using innovative criteria that incorporate customer perception alongside traditional metrics. Her voice carried authority, a fearless balance of emotion and logic that compelled even the toughest critics to engage. Yet a looming question nagged at her: could she galvanize her colleagues as passionately as she had addressed the board? She recalled how often she had felt isolated. The very thought of taking the next step and initiating conversations with her peers left her unnerved. Embracing vulnerability had always been difficult for her, but navigating through this corporate maze required collaboration and mutual understanding. In pursuit of those connections, Meera scheduled informal lunch meetings with different departments. She wanted to understand their perspectives, their ambitions, and most critically, their fears. As they talked over salads and sandwiches, she listened intently, weaving their insights into her proposals, making everyone feel like essential players in the forthcoming change. Growth didn't come without its bruises, though. One afternoon, during a particularly spirited discussion, she faced a jarring critique from Lynn, a long-standing team member known for her sharp tongue. Meera, let us face it, these ideas are ambitious. But ambition alone won't cut it. We need you to get more serious, Lynn challenged, eyes narrowed. The comment struck like a blow, unearthing insecurities Meera thought she had buried. But in that moment of confrontation, she tapped into the strength she had forged in the boardroom. Instead of defending herself, she chose to remain calm, absorbing the critique. I appreciate your candor, Lynn, she responded thoughtfully. Let us break this down together. What is your interpretation of seriousness in our vision? Can we redefine it to align with our goals? These responses didn't resolve all her challenges, but they did keep the dialogue open. Every conversation became a crucible of learning, each conflict a step closer to understanding not only her colleagues but also herself. As days morphed into weeks, Meera's vision began to shape the company's narrative into something palpable. She could feel the energy shift, but with each victory came the gnawing reminder of the ultimate goal, a final board meeting where she would lay all three initiatives and the data-driven forecasts that supported them. Time pressed on. Would she present her refined vision with the same passion without losing sight of the hard facts? What if when the day arrived, the board dismissed her attempts again? The winds of apprehension swirled, and she stood at a crossroad, contemplating if she was prepared for what lay ahead. With her heart pounding, Meera opened her calendar and noted the date just a few days away. This time, the stakes were higher. It wasn't just a business meeting, it was about her identity as a leader, an architect of change. As that realization sank in, she felt the spark of determination reignite. It was now or never. Would she step fully into her power, or would self-doubt steer her once again toward safer waters? The looming confrontation with the board was more than professional, it felt personal this time, challenging the very essence of who she had become. The moment of truth awaited her, and she wondered whether she'd emerge victorious or falter at the finish line. In that uncertainty, one question echoed louder than the rest: had she uncovered all there was to learn about herself, or was there still untapped potential just waiting to be unleashed? Meera woke early, the sun barely illuminating the city, casting long shadows across her cluttered desk. The hard deadlines looming that day pressed heavily on her shoulders, yet instead of resignation, she felt a flicker of something different: resolve. It was a quiet promise to herself that today would be decisive. She would not just present her ideas, she would own them. As she brewed her coffee, the bitter aroma filled the space, grounding her in the moment. She closed her eyes, taking deep breaths, visualizing her delivery in the boardroom. The more she imagined it, the more she could feel the tension in her stomach transform into a thrill. She was preparing not just for a meeting, but for a declaration of her potential. Armored with her notes and fortified by her morning ritual, Meera stepped into the bustling office, the sound of typing echoing like a heartbeat. She knew the audience she would face later that day, but this morning, her focus was on arming herself with a different kind of confidence, one that went beyond the data-driven forecasts she had meticulously crafted. She needed to frame her vision in ways that would resonate emotionally as well as intellectually. During a swift walk through the office, she sought out her colleagues. With every interaction, she felt her nervous energy transform into a collective pulse. Each conversation was infusing her with insights and perspectives she hadn't fully considered, breathing life into the initiatives she planned to present. How had she overlooked this before? Their connectors were potent, they made her vision not merely hers, but theirs as well. As noon approached, the tension was palpable. Meera gathered her thoughts and solidified her core message: change was not a fearsome beast, but an evolving journey they would take together. Moments before she was to step into the boardroom, Meera's hands trembled slightly. Replaying Lynn's earlier critique in her mind, she confronted the roots of her anxieties once more. Why did the sharp sting of doubt linger? Was it truly about ambition failing to bear fruit, or a misunderstanding of what she defined as serious? The meeting began, and as the board members settled, she felt a flicker of her previous trepidation. She reminded herself that she stood here, not simply as a contributor, but as an architect of possibility, someone willing to reshape the corporate landscape they had grown accustomed to. "Thank you all for making time today," she started, her voice steady despite the flurry of thoughts racing through her mind. "Today, I want to discuss not just numbers and figures, but the very fabric of who we are as a company." Meera launched into her presentation, articulating her vision backed by careful research and the insights she had gathered from her colleagues. What struck her more vividly was not merely the response she received but how she engaged with the board members themselves. This was different from before, she learned to read their reactions. Lynn, sitting front and center, raised her hand midway through a slide. "I have to ask, how do we ensure this isn't just lofty aspiration?" Her tone was critical and direct, yet open enough to indicate a desire for deeper engagement. "Great question," Meera replied, meeting Lynn's piercing gaze with newfound composure. "While ambition is crucial, what gives it weight is our strategy and collective buy-in." Instead of defensiveness, she channeled Lynn's skepticism into an opportunity for dialogue, exploring ways to solidify her proposals with tangible goals and methods of accountability. As discussions deepened, Meera noticed the board members engaging more earnestly. The dynamic felt different. It was no longer just her presentation but a cohesive exchange of ideas and rebuttals, each building off the last. Yet even as she relished this synergy, doubt tickled her thoughts. Was this enough? Could she go further? The next stage was critical. The board would have to vote on her proposed initiatives. In that instant, Meera realized that her growth in this moment was not simply about convincing others but about forging herself as the leader she aspired to be. As the meeting drew to a close, the board members, visibly impressed, took a moment to digest what they had just witnessed. But no matter their affection for her efforts, the real test had yet to come, the decision that would dictate the path forward. Breathless with anticipation, Meera pondered how much farther she was willing to push herself. Would she keep advancing, even if it meant continuing to confront uncomfortable truths? The pulse of ambition thrummed stronger within her. The true confrontation lay ahead. It was time to face the ultimate decision, where acceptance or rejection would breathe life or death into her vision. The hour would soon arrive. Would today mark the culmination of her efforts, or merely another step down a long path yet to unfold? The air in the conference room was thick with anticipation as Meera gathered her thoughts for the final pitch that could determine the future of her initiatives. The board members, who had once dismissed her as a fleeting voice, now displayed expressions of interest, a reflection of the transformative journey she had crafted both for them and herself. With the warm but steadfast strength growing within, she stepped to the forefront of the room, ready to mark a significant chapter of her career. "Thank you all for your time today," she began, her voice steady and confident, filled with the unwavering conviction that had blossomed over the past weeks. Each member of the board sat before her, a tangible audience to her ascent and transformation. "This isn't just about projects or profits, it's about creating a legacy," Meera asserted, her eyes scanning the room to meet the gaze of each board member. "Today, we stand at a crossroads where we have the opportunity to redefine our role in this rapidly evolving market. Together, we can shape our company into one that is synonymous with purpose, innovation, and sustainability." Her heart raced, but it was no longer fueled by anxiety, it surged with adrenaline and excitement. During the initial discussions, she had almost collapsed under the weight of their skepticism, but every knock had fortified her resolve. She found herself weaving her personal journey into the presentation seamlessly, reminding them of the core values intertwined with her upbringing, values they could harness as their guiding principle moving forward. "With our initiatives to integrate sustainable practices, we will not only adhere to market demands but also be leaders in social responsibility. Today's consumers seek out brands that reflect their values. They want to support businesses that contribute positively to the world," she elaborated, her voice reverberating conviction. Hearts leaned in, and the room's atmosphere shifted successfully from skepticism to intrigue as she detailed her actionable strategies, weaving in real-life examples and data from her earlier research. The narrative's arc coalesced into a powerful message: change is not a burden, but an opportunity to inspire. Just as she felt momentum building, another board member, one who had challenged her earlier, sought to poke holes in her argument. "We understand the concepts, but we need estimates. What are the financial projections behind these initiatives?" Instead of recoiling, Meera encountered this moment like a seasoned warrior, head held high. "Absolutely," she replied, pulling out the detailed metrics she had prepared. "Here are the projected outcomes of integrating these sustainable practices. Not only do we anticipate a reduction in operational costs, but also an increase in consumer loyalty and market share as we transform into a brand that resonates with today's values." One of the most skeptical members leaned forward, sharp brows now furrowed in contemplation instead of dismissal. Indeed, her argument seemed to resonate. They began discussing these projections amongst themselves, an orchestrated hum morphing into constructive dialogue. Yet, even with positive energy permeating the room, a familiar echo of doubt pierced her confidence. What would it take for them to truly believe in her vision? How could she silence the last remnants of skepticism lurking beneath the surface? "While projections are important," Meera continued, "the heart of our proposal signifies a cultural pivot. By adopting these initiatives, you're not merely investing in the company's financial future, you're investing in its identity and legacy. The conviction in her tone belied the struggle that had propelled her here, every challenge faced, every tear shed, every moment of doubt conquered. She paused, allowing her words to marinate, noticing nods of agreement. The unwavering gaze of the lead partner now held elements of intrigue and respect. The ground beneath her feet felt secure, the pillars of her identity firm beneath the weight of her purpose. Let us be pioneers, not just followers, she declared with renewed vigor. As discussions continued, the seeds of transformation sprouted visibly, blossoming under her influence. By engaging in dialogue rather than just presenting a monologue, Meera listened carefully to their concerns, integrating their feedback into her vision, thus forging a connection with them deeper than mere business. The conversation shifted toward collaborative strategies during the second half of the meeting. Meera seized the moment, rallying support for her initiatives, and the outlines of their concerns began sculpting pathways to actionable plans. When it came time to vote, an electrifying suspense hung in the air. She held her breath, keenly aware that every resource she had gathered, every moment spent preparing, led to this singular point of reckoning. One by one, the board members raised their hands in favor. With an undercurrent of enthusiasm, their acceptance transformed her vision from mere aspiration to actionable reality. The chairperson turned to her, a bemused grin reassuring her presence within these walls. Congratulations, Meera. We're enthusiastic about moving forward. Welcome to our path of progress. As the meeting concluded, applause erupted, marking both an end and a beginning. Meera walked out of that conference room with a sense of accomplishment that transcended mere achievement. It represented the culmination of a transformative journey. No longer defined merely by her father's legacy, she emerged as a leader in her own right, a vision realized through perseverance, advocacy, and courage. Meera stood outside, the crisp air filling her lungs, inhaling a future that shimmered with potential. She had proven not only her capabilities but had also synthesized her identity into a professional character that would stand firm against prevailing doubts. This was not merely a victory for Meera, but a testament that dreams can transcend barriers. She understood now that legacy isn't just about honor, it's about rewriting narratives, ensuring that the whispers of laughter and condescension transform into applause for meaningful change. With renewed determination, she reflected on the journey ahead, one that promised even greater challenges and victories. She was ready. Now it's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, we want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because nothing inspires more than tales of personal triumph. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your support matters, and only true fans of overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions.